The barrel of the suppressed pistol was pressed so hard against my temple that I could feel the cold steel vibrating with the hum of the ship's engine. And in that freezing, salt-sprayed darkness, I realized that the silence of this vessel wasn't empty, it was waiting. Before we rewind to the misty Seattle morning where this nightmare began, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because what you are about to hear will make you think twice before looking out at the dark ocean horizon again. It started with a phone call that no FBI agent wants to receive at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. The rain was hammering against the windows of my apartment in downtown Seattle, a relentless gray static that drowns out the city. When I saw the caller ID, USCG Sector Puget Sound, I knew my sleep was over. I'm Special Agent Miller, part of the Violent Crime Squad, but my specialty is maritime jurisdiction, crimes that happen on the dark water, where the laws of land seem to dissolve into the fog. The voice on the other end was Commander Higgins, a man I hadn't heard sound rattled in 10 years of service. He told me they had a code red drifting 5 miles off the coast of Cape Flattery. A cargo freighter, the MV Cronus, a massive Panamanian-flagged vessel, had entered U.S. territorial waters, but there was no pilot request, no radio response, no AIS transponder signal, just 100,000 tons of steel drifting blindly toward the rocky coastline. By 5 a.m., I was in a Jayhawk helicopter, the rotors chopping through the heavy marine layer. Below us, the Pacific Ocean was a churning expanse of slate gray, unforgiving and vast. Beside me sat Lieutenant Alvarez, the leader of the Coast Guard's Maritime Safety and Security Team, MSST. He was checking his MP5 submachine gun, his face grim. We weren't treating this as a rescue mission anymore. We were treating it as a potential hostile boarding. The Cronus had last radioed in from Busan, South Korea 3 weeks ago. Since then, total silence. As the helicopter banked, the ship came into view. It was a leviathan, a rust-streaked monster bobbing violently in the swells. Containers were stacked 6 high, looking like jagged teeth. But the most unsettling thing wasn't its size. It was the lack of light. The bridge was dark. The deck lights were off. It looked like a tomb floating on the water. We fast-roped down onto the stern, the wind whipping our tactical gear. My boots hit the non-slip steel deck with a heavy thud, and immediately the smell hit me. Bunker fuel, rotting seaweed, and something else, something metallic and coppery that prickled the hairs on the back of my neck. "Clear right," Alvarez shouted over the wind, his team fanning out with practiced precision. I drew my Glock 19, thumbing the safety off. The silence on the deck was unnatural. A ship this size is a living thing. There should be crewmen chipping paint, checking lashings, moving. Instead, there was only the groan of metal straining against the sea. The sheer scale of the ship made us feel insignificant, like insects crawling on the corpse of a whale. We moved toward the bridge, the command center of the ship. Every step echoed. I noticed a half-smoked cigarette lying on the deck near a watertight door. I knelt to touch it. The paper was damp, but the ash hadn't been blown away by the wind yet. Someone had been here recently, very recently. I signaled to Alvarez. He nodded, hand signals directing his team to stack up on the bridge door. This was the moment of truth. If there were terrorists or pirates on board, this is where they'd be holding a crew. Alvarez breached the door, swinging it open. "Federal agents, show me your hands!" he screamed, his voice cracking with adrenaline. Nothing.
The bridge was empty. The wheel turned slowly, ghostly, guided by a confused autopilot trying to correct for the drift. Monitors flickered with navigational data, casting a sickly green glow over the empty helm. But it was the details that made my stomach turn. A mug of coffee sat next to the radar display. I touched the ceramic. It was stone cold, a layer of mold forming on the surface. But next to it, the ship's logbook lay open. I walked over, my flashlight cutting through the gloom. The last entry was dated 4 days ago. It was scrawled in frantic, jagged handwriting, deviating from the standard neat block letters of a maritime officer. It read, "They are in the vents. We cannot stop the noise. God forgive us for what we brought on board." "Agent Miller," Alvarez called out from the communication station. "You need to see this." I walked over. The radio handset was dangling by its cord, swaying with the roll of the ship. The wire had been cut, not pulled out, sliced clean with a blade. "Someone didn't want them calling for help," Alvarez whispered. "This wasn't a mechanical failure. This was a crime scene." But where were the 22 crew members? We began the sweep, moving down from the bridge into the officers' quarters. This is where the slow dread truly began to set in. In the captain's cabin, the bed was made. A framed photo of a smiling woman and 2 kids sat on the desk, face down. I picked it up. On the back, written in red marker, was a single symbol, an eye with a line through it. I bagged it as evidence. The room was tossed, drawers pulled out, clothes scattered. They were looking for something. But who? Pirates usually take the crew for ransom and steal the cash from the safe. I checked the safe behind a painting of a seascape. It was wide open, but the cash, stacks of US dollars and euros intended for port fees, was still there, untouched. Thousands of dollars, ignored. That ruled out standard piracy. This was personal, or it was professional. We moved deeper into the ship, descending into the bowels of the beast. The air grew hotter, thicker, smelling of grease and stagnant water. The humming of the auxiliary generators was deafening down here. We reached the galley. This scene haunts me. Dinner plates were set on the tables. Rotting food, rice, fish, vegetables, sat on the plates. Forks were dropped mid-bite. Chairs were overturned. It looked like the rapture had happened during lunch. Whatever occurred, it happened instantly. I scanned the room with my UV light. The floor lit up like a star chart. Blood, massive amounts of it, sprayed across the linoleum, but someone had tried to clean it up with bleach. The smell of chlorine was faint, masked by the rod, but it was there. "Sir," a young Coast Guard officer called out from the pantry. I found a phone. It was a smartphone, cracked screen, wedged behind a shelf of canned peaches. I grabbed an evidence bag. If we could get data off this, we might find out what happened. But right now, we had a ship full of ghosts and a lot of blood. "We need to check the engine room," I told Alvarez. "If anyone is hiding, or if the bodies are stashed, it'll be in the loudest, deepest part of the ship." The descent into the engine room was a journey into hell. The catwalks were narrow, suspended over the massive diesel engines that were the size of houses. The heat was oppressive, 90 degrees easily. Shadows stretched and twisted with every flicker of our flashlights. I kept feeling like I was being watched from the dark corners of the machinery. We reached the control room. The systems were running, but the fuel was low. And then I saw it, a single, bloody boot print on the metal grating, pointing towards the propeller shaft tunnel, a long, claustrophobic corridor that runs the length of the ship to the screw. "Stay sharp," I whispered. We moved into the tunnel. The shaft spun dizzyingly in the center, a rotating steel column of death. If you touched it, it would grind you to paste. At the far end of the tunnel, near the steering gear, sat a man. He was huddled in the corner, rocking back and forth. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit covered in grease and blood that wasn't his.
"Federal agent, hands in the air," I shouted, leveling my weapon. The man didn't flinch. He just kept rocking. We advanced slowly. As we got closer, I saw his eyes. They were wide, blown pupils, staring at nothing. He was mumbling something over and over. I got close enough to hear him. The silence is heavy. "Don't open the box. Don't open the box." Alvarez moved in to cuff him. The man screamed, a high, animalistic sound, and lunged, not at us, but toward the spinning shaft. Alvarez tackled him just in time, pinning him to the deck. "Get a medic down here," Alvarez yelled into his radio. "We have one survivor, psychotic break." I knelt in front of the man. He was Asian, likely Filipino based on the crew manifest. "What happened?" I demanded. "Where is the crew?" He looked at me, lucid for one terrifying second. "The box," he rasped. "Container 402. We heard them knocking. We opened it." Then he passed out. Container 402. We dragged the survivor out and secured him for medevac, but the investigation wasn't over. We had to find that container. We went back up to the main deck. The wind had picked up, rain lashing sideways now. We checked the manifest on my tablet. Container 402 was listed as carrying auto parts. It was located in the forward bay, bottom of the stack, a nightmare to get to. We didn't have a crane. We had to climb the stacks and drop down. Alvarez and I, along with 2 other tactical officers, made the climb. The shipping containers were slippery with rain. One slip meant a 60-foot drop onto steel. When we reached the location of 402, something was wrong. The containers around it were standard rusted steel, but 402 was brand new, high-tech locking mechanisms, and it was vibrating, not from the ship's engine, but from within, a low-frequency hum. "I need a thermal read," I ordered. Alvarez pulled out a FLIR device.
Agent Miller, it's hot inside, like 98 degrees hot, multiple heat signatures. My heart hammered against my ribs. Human trafficking. It had to be. Get the hydraulic cutters, I commanded. It took 20 minutes to cut through the heavy-duty locks. The sparks flew into the night air, sizzling as they hit the wet deck. When the lock finally gave way, I grabbed the heavy lever. FBI, open up, I yelled, yanking the door open. The smell hit us first. Not death, but unwashed bodies, fear, and ozone. But when the flashlight beams cut into the darkness of the container, we didn't see people huddled on the floor. We saw a laboratory. Rows of servers lined the walls, blinking rapidly, and in the center, strapped to chairs, were the missing crew members. They were alive, but they were wired into the machines. VR headsets covered their eyes, IV drips were fed into their arms. They were catatonic, their fingers twitching as if typing on invisible keyboards. It wasn't trafficking. It was a farm, a human botnet. Someone was using their brains, their biological processing power, to run something massive. Cut the power, I yelled. Get them out. Don't, a voice boomed from the darkness behind us. I spun around, raising my Glock. Standing on top of the adjacent container was a figure in a black raincoat, night vision goggles covering his face. He held a detonator. You disconnect them, the failsafe triggers, the man said, his accent American, refined. The neural surge will fry their brains instantly. They are processing a decryption algorithm worth billions. You interrupt it. You kill them. Who are you? I demanded, stepping forward, keeping my aim steady on his chest. I'm the insurance, he said calmly. The captain got greedy. He wanted a cut of the crypto mining operation we installed. He threatened to talk, so we expanded the operation. We used the crew. Efficient, isn't it? Put the detonator down, I said, my voice steady, though my mind was racing. I had to distract him. Alvarez was flanking to the left, moving silently in the shadows. You can't escape. The Coast Guard has the ship surrounded. This is international waters, Agent, he scoffed. We're close enough, and I have a Zodiac mode on the port side. I'm leaving. You're going to stay here and watch them work until they expire. He raised the detonator. Drop the gun, Miller.
This was the moment. The standoff. The rain blurred my vision. If I shot him, his thumb might slip and trigger the surge. If I didn't, he'd escape, or worse, kill us all to cover his tracks. I needed to break his concentration. You made a mistake, I said, loud enough to be heard over the wind. What? He hesitated. The survivor, the one in the engine room, he talked. We know who the buyer is. It was a bluff, a total lie, but it worked. For a split second, the man looked confused. He looked down at me, his arrogance faltering. Crack. The sound of a sniper rifle from the hovering helicopter above was a thunderclap. The man's shoulder exploded in a spray of red mist. The detonator flew from his hand, skittering across the top of the container. He collapsed, screaming. Move, 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 Alvarez shouted. We rushed to the container. I scrambled up the side and kicked the detonator away before the wounded man could reach it with his good hand. I pinned him down, cuffing him while he writhed in pain. You have the right to remain silent, I shouted over the storm, reciting the Miranda warning as the rain washed the blood from his coat onto my hands. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. We got the paramedics in. The crew members were alive, but barely. The tech in the container was a localized supercomputer using the crew's biorhythms to bypass biometric security on stolen data caches. It was a level of cybercrime I hadn't even known existed, wetware hacking. The ship wasn't silent because they were dead. It was silent because their minds were being held hostage in a digital prison. As the sun began to rise, painting the gray water with streaks of gold, the silent ship was towed toward the port of Seattle. The survivor in the engine room turned out to be the cook, who had hidden in the shaft tunnel when the mercenaries boarded. The handwriting in the logbook was his. He was trying to warn anyone who found them about the noise of the servers, the humming that drove them mad. We identified the man in the raincoat. He was an ex-intelligence contractor named Julian Vane. The investigation revealed a network of these ghost ships operating in the Pacific, mobile server farms that used human captives to conduct illegal data mining and decryption, keeping the heat off land-based grids. The Cronus was just one node in a dark web network floating on the open ocean. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. When we analyzed the data from the servers, we found that the decryption was only 98% complete. Vane was willing to kill 20 men for that last 2%. But who was the client? Who ordered a job that required the minds of living men to be enslaved? The files were encrypted with a key we still haven't broken. And Vane? He was found dead in his holding cell 2 days later. Suicide, the report said. But I saw the photos.
The cameras in the cell malfunctioned for exactly 3 minutes. The ocean is vast, and the laws of man are fragile out there. We stopped one ship, but how many more are drifting in the fog, silent, waiting? Every time I look at a container ship in the harbor now, I don't see commerce. I see a metal box that could be holding anything, or anyone. And that brings me to the question I need you to answer. Do you believe that technology is evolving faster than our morality? Or are we just finding new, high-tech ways to be savages? The silent ship was a tomb for the living, a horrifying merger of man and machine. If you think there are more ships like this out there, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you found that container? Would you have pulled the plug? Until next time, stay vigilant. The world is full of mysteries, and some of them are floating right off our shores.